When shadows creep and whispers echo through the hollows of forgotten places, there lies a tale that chills the very marrow of one's bones. It is a story of Hollow Creek, a place where the veil between our world and the unknown grows thin, where the air itself seems to breathe with malevolent intent. They say every stretch of backwoods has its secrets, places where the trees grow too close, where the mist hangs too low, and where the animals go quiet for reasons no natural thing can explain. Hollow Creek was one of those places, a realm where the darkness seemed to pulse with an unholy life of its own. I first heard the stories as a child, huddled around campfires that cast flickering shadows upon the faces of those who dared to speak of it. Tales of something that watched from the tree line, something that didn't move right. Hunters, their voices trembling with a fear they could scarcely comprehend, would return from the depths of Hollow Creek with pale faces and haunted eyes. They whispered of footprints too large to be a bear's, of a shape glimpsed between the pines that stood too tall and too still. They called it the Hollow Man, though no one ever claimed it was human. In my youthful naivety, I dismissed these tales as mere fabrications, the product of overactive imaginations and too much whiskey. I did not believe it, of course. Not until last October, when the veil of ignorance was torn asunder and I beheld the truth with my own terrified eyes. It was a day like any other, the crisp autumn air filled with the scent of decay and the promise of winter's approach. I found myself hiking near the old Miller farm just before dusk, when the world teeters on the precipice between day and night. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and rotting leaves, the kind of quiet that makes your skin prickle with an inexplicable dread. That's when I heard it, a sound like wet branches snapping, but too slow, too deliberate. It was a sound that did not belong in the natural world, a sound that spoke of something ancient and terrible. I turned, scanning the trees with eyes wide with mounting terror. Nothing met my gaze but the endless sea of bark and leaves, yet I could feel the weight of unseen eyes upon me. Then I saw the footprints. They were fresh, the earth still moist where it had been disturbed. Deep impressions that spoke of a weight beyond that of any creature known to man. And they were wrong too long, with claw marks at the tips, as if whatever made them walked on all fours, but sometimes ... stood up. The very sight of them sent a chill through my body, a primal fear that spoke of dangers long forgotten by civilized man. The woods went dead silent. No crickets chirped their nightly chorus, no wind rustled through the leaves. The world held its breath, and in that terrible stillness, I heard it, the slow, wet sound of something moving just out of sight. It was a sound that spoke of flesh and bone, of muscles rippling beneath a hide that had never known the touch of sunlight. I ran. My feet pounded against the earth, each step a desperate attempt to put distance between myself and the horror that lurked in the shadows. Behind me, the underbrush crunched, not the scatter of an animal fleeing in fear, but the steady, relentless pace of something following. Something that knew it need not hurry, for its prey could never truly escape. I didn't look back. I didn't dare. To turn and face the thing that pursued me would be to invite madness, to gaze upon a visage that no mortal mind was meant to comprehend. So I ran, my lungs burning, my heart thundering in my chest like a drum heralding my own doom. When at last I hit the road, my truck was still there, a beacon of hope in the gathering gloom. I threw myself into the cab, my hands shaking so violently I could scarcely grasp the keys. The second I slammed the door, something slammed back hard enough to dent the metal, to leave an impression of a hand far too large to be human. I didn't wait to see what had left that terrible mark. I just drove, the engine roaring as I fled from the nightmare that had become all too real. The trees of Hollow Creek receded in my rearview mirror, but the memory of what I had encountered there would forever be etched upon my soul. The next morning, driven by a morbid curiosity that I could not suppress, I returned to the scene of my terror. This time, I came armed with a shotgun, though in my heart I knew it would be little use against the thing that stalked Hollow Creek. The footprints were still there, a grim reminder that the horrors of the night had not been a mere figment of my imagination. They led right up to where my truck had been, a trail of doom that spoke of relentless pursuit. But they didn't stop there. No, dear reader, what I beheld next chilled me to my very core. For the footprints turned around, leading back into the woods from whence they came. It was as if the creature, having satisfied its curiosity, or perhaps merely toying with its prey, had decided to return to its lair to await another opportunity. They say the Hollow Man doesn't follow you home. They say it just watches, learning, waiting for the night you're alone. But I know better now. For in the days that followed, I felt its presence even in the sanctity of my own home. The creaking of floorboards in the dead of night, the sensation of eyes upon me, even when I was alone, all spoke of a horror that had not been content to remain in the confines of Hollow Creek. Because last night, I heard something on my porch. A sound that did not belong. A shuffling, scraping noise that spoke of something large and unnatural. I lay in my bed, paralyzed with fear, as the sound moved around the perimeter of my house, testing, seeking a way in. And this morning, there were footprints under my window. The same terrible, elongated prints I had seen in the woods, now pressed into the soil of my own garden. They were a message, a promise that the thing from Hollow Creek had not forgotten me, that it had followed me to the very threshold of my sanctuary. Now, as I sit here penning these words, I can feel the weight of its gaze upon me. The shadows in the corners of my room seem to deepen, to writhe with a life of their own. I know that soon, perhaps tonight, perhaps tomorrow, the Hollow Man will come for me. And when it does, I fear that no lock, no weapon, no prayer will be enough to save me from its embrace. So I leave this account as a warning to all who might venture near Hollow Creek. Beware the thing that stalks its shadowed glens, the creature that watches from the tree line with eyes that have never known mercy. For once it has marked you, there is no escape. The Hollow Man is patient, eternal, and it knows that in the end, all flesh must succumb to the darkness. As I write these final words, I hear sound outside my door. A slow, wet breathing, the scrape of claws against wood. It has come for me at last, and I know that when you read this, I will be gone, another victim of the thing that stalks Hollow Creek. Another soul lost to the shadows that lurk just beyond the edge of our world. Remember my tale, dear reader, and pray that you never find yourself alone in the dark, with the sound of footsteps drawing ever nearer, and the knowledge that the Hollow Man has come to claim what it believes to be its own.